Good morning, Pat. How's
Hi,
it going?
Cami. Good. It's good. It's a beautiful day here in Minnesota, so I'm looking forward to enjoying that.
And I've got rain and clouds here in Kentucky, but gonna be heading back up to Minnesota soon, so I'm excited for that. Um,
Yeah.
Pat, I want to talk with you today. You shared a little bit about your journey with us in the Confident Grief Coach classes and just personally with what you've been experiencing lately over the past few years of your life with chronic pain and the grief that goes with everything that you've experienced with the limitations that you've had with your neck and your back pain, and that's been a really hot topic for you in your personal life, but also you're recognizing that so many other people experience grief with all of these limitations and challenges that chronic pain presents with them. So, if you're open to it, I would love to talk with you and hear more about just what your experience has been like and how you might offer some insight or support for those who might be experiencing all these different layers of grief with chronic pain.
Sure. Yep. I'm always willing to share, that's for sure. Um, well, I'll just start. Like it's been almost 2 years, and it initially started with this back pain that was in the middle of my back, and it feels like it just came out of nowhere. And all of a sudden, it made bending very difficult. It made walking very difficult. And I tried all different kinds of modalities, massage therapy, chiropractic, doing all of that, and it just was not going away. And it started limiting my ability to do the stuff I love, like yoga and my long walks, and everything was like aggravating it. So I sought Western medicine and went in and um, went to a pain, not a pain clinic, a spine clinic. And the spine clinic, they generally will start with injections, and they got a scan of my back and showed degenerative changes, and then they were doing injections into my back, and they do these testing injections and seeing if you get some temporary relief, because they knew that if you got temporary relief, ultimately they could move to what they call an ablation, and it's basically like radio frequency burning the nerve endings. um, and nerves regenerate, but it's, can be very successful for people. It's not long standing. Usually every 1 to 2 years, you're going to have to go through it again. But it was like, okay, this is like cramping my style big time. And yeah, it was getting so trying because I was so frustrated because I felt like I lost a year of my life.
Mm.
And last September, they had done the ablation probably 3 weeks before, but I had had a trip planned with my daughter for over a year to go to Portugal. And so we went to Portugal, and I'm using a walking stick, feeling like this is not me because I hike, I'm very active, biking, swimming. I love all of that kind of stuff. And I'm walking with a walking stick, around Portugal, and the back was not feeling good at all. And then subsequently, I was carrying my bags on my shoulders using shoulder bags, right? And the neck on this side, my shoulder and neck started really causing problems and being very painful. And I thought it was just because I had the straps around the neck as I was, carrying these shoulder bags. So I get back to the US. I called the spine clinic and I said, the pain is excruciating in my back. So they said, let's just go in, and sometimes you need to have a little epidural after the ablation. And it was amazing. It took the pain away in my low back. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so great. I can walk again. I can do all this. But in the meantime, this is like so bad. So I again went to chiropractic, did some massage therapy, and it actually was just like worsening and worsening. So I called back the pain or the spine clinic and said, can I come to see you about my neck? Sure. So they started with injections, and all of this kind of stuff. Then they wanted to do an MRI of my cervical spine because the injections were not working. and then to see, what they're dealing with there. So I had a couple of physical therapy appointments to give me some home exercise programs in the meantime. And then I changed insurances. And so then we had to wait for that MRI to get approved. So that was like a couple month delay. And finally got the MRI, and it showed significant degeneration in my neck, herniated discs. I have slippages, I have arthritis, and it's like from top to bottom of the neck. So all of a sudden you have like this validity of, oh my gosh, there is some real stuff going on here. And so again, with injections, and those weren't working. And it was like constant. And I was starting to feel depressed, not depression where I felt I needed to be medicated, but it's like I couldn't do all the stuff. So now I could go back walking, but walking aggravated my neck. And so I
Mm.
tried yoga, and that would just like inflame the neck. So everything that I tried that was like my go-to was causing more pain in the neck. So I just started, it's like I ruminate about my neck pain all the time. And I went to see a surgeon. He wanted more imaging. And I just thought, I was praying for surgery. I was hoping for surgery, that something could go in and fix this. And when I went in this week, and I knew I had to get myself into a mindset of, if surgery isn't an option, what are you going to do, Pat? This is not something that you're going to continue, have wrapping your whole life around. And surgery just isn't an option, because it would be a very extensive surgery. And at my age, there would be another surgery probably 10 years down the road, which would be even worse. And it would be very limiting in my range of motion. It will take away the pain, but my motion of my neck. And so it's like, okay, that's not an option for me. But I'm just going to go back to, I was a career person, a nurse case manager in the workers' compensation system, and rose to being one of the executive and vice president of case and claim management for 25 years. My whole career was dealing with people that injured themselves at work and ended up in chronic pain.
Mm.
Those are the ones that we really honed in on. The people that got fine, they went on with their life. But I was like, oh my God, I've become one of those 6% that, we were dealing with. And that was kind of shocking to me. And realizing how I never really thought about the depression and the grief these people have gone through, and why they reacted the way that they did, almost getting so consumed by their pain, which we tried to get them to not be so consumed by their pain. But it was like, wow, now that I've witnessed this and felt it and done it all myself, I have a whole renewed thing about how griefy it is to be in pain constantly. And a girlfriend of mine had a failed neck fusion many years ago, and she was looking for some coaching. This was several years ago. And so we did coaching together, and shared with her, some qigong exercises, and shared with her, the grief program. And I saw her about 3 weeks ago, and we talked about surgery and that type of thing. And she said, Pat, I never knew that I was grieving with my pain until you and I connected. And that was like such an aha for me, and a turning point in her life, to be
Mm.
able to work through the grief that she had because of her limited abilities, because she had a failed fusion. And that kind of opened up my eyes. And then she said, you really should be doing your coaching for chronic pain people too, not just for the death of. And so that's been kind of sitting in the back of my mind. And then all of this is going on with me. And it's like, yes, this is grief. I have been grieving, my aging body. I'm going to be
Mm.
67, and for a lot of people, that doesn't sound old, but yet the fact is, I've used my body really well for 67 years, and now my body's saying, you got some stuff here, and so I need to kind of work through the sadness of that. Like, that's the reality. I'm grieving the body that I used to have. And yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at today, is still processing through that, but also realizing that I have a renewed understanding of how grief impacts us. And I need to lean into the model that we always talk about, the breathe coaching model for myself, right?
Mhm.
And creating awareness and action, because I'm bound and determined that I'm going to heal myself. So
Yeah. Yeah, wow. Thank you for sharing your journey. You've been on quite the journey to figure this out and to learn how to support yourself through this, and also those opportunities to support other people as well who are going through their own journeys of the grief that comes with the pain that you're experiencing. And you mentioned a couple times that overlap of the emotional challenge that comes with having the physical pain and the physical challenges of just limiting what you're able to do in your body and how your body's changing as you're continuing to utilize your body over the years. Would you be able to go a little bit deeper into what is that like? How does the physical aspect of your pain and the physical challenges, how does that intertwine with, you mentioned some depression and the mental or emotional challenges that come with this kind of loss?
oh yeah, like right now, I mean, my shoulder is, I started some therapy, but it's like, it's not going to go away overnight. Just sitting here and not being able to, fully, and I get stopped by pain. And last night even, my husband and I were out and running some errands and coming back, and it's like I just need to sit.
Mm.
And at 5:30 in the afternoon, I just need to sit and close my eyes because it's exhausting.
Mm.
And grief is exhausting, right? So it's so weird, because it's like I'm a person that it's do, and I'm not into naps, and I'm not, but all of a sudden it's like I've had to take those moments and stop myself so that I'm not aggravating something. And that's probably been the biggest challenge for me, I would say, is I get mad at myself and my body. I get angry, like, this shouldn't be this way right now.
Mm.
And then, I've been trained in energy healing and movements and stuff like that. And I'm like, I haven't shared a lot of this with people. Number one, because I don't want people to think that I'm whiny, because I feel like I'm whining about my pain all the time. And so I'm very cautious about sharing it beyond my family, and even not there. And so people don't see the impact it's having on me, because I try to muscle through it, which isn't necessarily the healthiest thing to do physically. Um, and I haven't been leaning into other people because I just don't want, my world has gotten quite small,
Mm.
which are all
Wow.
those things that we talk about grief, right?
Mhm. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, was how the physically your experience of like wanting to suppress it, or you don't want to voice what you're actually going through, the reality of the pain that you're experiencing on a physical level, and how that causes you to hold it in, it causes you to want to muscle through and just keep going, and how that is so relevant to what we teach with our grief
Yeah.
coaching clients of like, okay, well, how can we acknowledge this and honor the reality of like where you're at, And that totally applies whether it's a deep emotional pain or deep physical pain, and how they're so intertwined. How, and even with grief, we talk about how the emotional pain manifests physically, and now how this physical pain is manifesting emotionally. And the same way of seeking support is quite relevant for both of those situations, where you're talking about, like, okay, well, maybe if I stopped and paused and took a break and spent some time to integrate and slow down and breathe, maybe it wouldn't be so aggravating. And I think about how, wow, in the grief process, at least for me, if I don't give myself those moments to stop and pause and integrate and breathe, how my grief and my emotions get so aggravated and I get so inflamed on that mental and emotional level. And then I start
Right.
to feel it physically. So it's interesting how you're talking about the approach of navigating pain, whether it's, emotional, mentally related or physically related, and how the support with the grief on all of those levels is really quite consistent with what we know about supporting someone through loss.
Right. And it is a loss. It is a loss of the ability to do things like you used to do. And is it going to be forever lost? I don't know. I'm
Mm,
hoping not. Um, but the fact is, I do have some stuff here. So, it's there. So it could be long term,
mm,
but then it's like reframing how I'm viewing it, and it's about loving my body
mm,
and embracing this as this is just a part of, my body has really served me well
mm,
and it can continue to serve me well. Um, and it's so a lot of it is like the mental reframing and a lot of the stuff that we do in coaching and what are the things that I like to be outdoors,
mm,
so if I can go for a walk, not earbuds in, nothing, just go for a walk and just, look at the birds and look at the trees. And like here in Minnesota, things are just starting to bud out and just have that time to just process and breathe and relax is huge. And taking naps, I mean, yeah, it's almost like that's what I need to do. Sometimes I just need to lay down and allow it to just rest.
mm,
And when
mhm.
someone's grieving the loss of a loved one or whatever their deep loss is, it's allowing themselves, giving them permission to just be okay with allowing themselves to rest.
Yeah. Yeah, and we know on a physical level that that is healing, right? We know that when we give ourselves that space to activate that side of our nervous system, right? That side of us that knows how to heal, that knows how to, calm that inflammation so that the pain isn't so throbbing, whether it's physically or whether it's emotionally. Like, our system knows that, and finding those moments where we can come back to that through the breath, through being in nature, through, some gentle movement can really help, like, calm a lot of that. But,
Right.
like, yeah, giving yourself that opportunity to even do that, when I would imagine some days it feels like hopeless, like it's going to be this way forever. But then other days you can see the light and you have glimpses of, nope, this is temporary. I'm determined to heal myself and shift this. And how, like, honoring where you're at, but also, like, having that mindset of, like, wanting to do what you can to make those changes for yourself, and
Yep.
figuring out where you're at from that spectrum from day to day or moment to moment is quite exhausting, I would imagine.
Yep. And leaning into my tribe, I haven't,
Mm,
you're part of my tribe. I have coaches that are part of my tribe that I just haven't been leaning into because it's like, you know, you feel like when you're um, a grief professional that you should be able to figure this out on your own and, not have to lean into others, which is bullshit. We know that. I mean, we all need to lean into each other because we can't coach ourselves. I can't coach myself through this.
yeah,
I can use the tools and all of that and be more self-sufficient, but there are times where I just need to really process through with other people and lean into my
absolutely.
tribe. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, right before this, we were in class in the Confident Grief Coach cohort, and you had a beautiful little coaching session with another Confident Grief coach with the school, Cindy, and she did a beautiful job uncovering a little bit of, with you, real life scenario of your experience of this and how you can lean on her. I mean, even just in that example of in class, what she was able to uncover with you was like so powerful to witness. I'm hoping that um Cindy is willing to work with you outside of class on
Yeah.
just coaching through some of what came up, because yeah, you're right. Like we can't just do it all on our own, and that seems to be a narrative that wants to repeat with all these different types of grief, right? Especially when we see ourselves as a leader in the space. Like, no, we really all need each other, and that's important to receive that.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Well,
For
something
sure.
that came to mind that I would love to dive into a little bit more is, you've got a situation that so many other people resonate with, as far as still very much having a lot of life in you and feeling these physical limitations where you are not showing up for your life in the fullness that you would have liked, or that you were expecting to if you didn't have this pain. And you want to get that back. And that's so valid. And I think about a lot of people who are experiencing terminal illness, where they're experiencing their body shutting down, and they know that they're not able to get that back. They know that they still have this enormous amount of life that they want to live, but their body is not going to recover. And they may not have that sense of hope because they know that, okay, with where I'm at, my body's not going to heal. They're stepping towards their transition into death. And as you were speaking, I was reflecting on my dad's experience with ALS, and ALS being an illness where you know that it's terminal, that it's just a matter of time. And he's trapped in a body that every day he's losing mobility. He was losing his ability to speak or swallow or move, or, everything under the sun, how he just was so trapped in that state of having a body that has this extreme limitation. And same thing with my stepdad with his cancer, how he, went from being this strong dude with a beautiful head of golden blonde hair to needing, a lift up the stairs to get to his bedroom towards his last months, and to his hair falling out and just being so weak. So I just wanted to open up the conversation with just these physical losses that we experience, whether or not you have years of life left with you and you're experiencing chronic pain, and managing that versus, how is that grief different if you're someone who's experiencing terminal illness, or um being a support person, being in the family of someone who's experiencing a terminal illness, and how the grief for that is like similar and different at the same time. Just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh, yes. I think it's acknowledging it and having the people around us seeing us without, I don't know how to say that. Like with me, I don't want sympathy, right?
Mm.
And people are like, oh, and I shared it on Facebook, kind of like I've been in chronic pain for a while, and it was really an awareness thing. And I don't want sympathy because that's not my MO. And I'm sure people that with terminal, like your dad's, they weren't looking for sympathy, but just holding the space and having
Mm.
someone hold the space for us, and just acknowledging that, yes, we're going through some difficulty, and just finding out what are ways that can actually help them find a reprieve from the constant thoughts. Like your dad with ALS, that's a constant thought. I'm trapped in this body. I'm trapped in this body. Is there anything that might have helped him? Like those are difficult ones, but just even kind of thoughts that maybe he could implant in, that he could lean into, even though he's maybe struggling with his breath, and, we always use breathing and things like that, but maybe even we can psychologically breathe, right? And neurologically breathe. just to settle us down a little bit. Or, with the cancer that your other dad, it's like it's inquiring what would be helpful for him
Mhm.
in the state that he's in, and so I think it is just being seen,
Mhm.
heard, and maybe doing a little inquiry, like what might you what might be helpful for you? How do you
Mhm.
want me to show up for you? So if I'm
Mhm.
a family member, how do you want me to show up for you?
Yeah.
And if you're a professional like we are working in this space, being open to work with all different types of grief, whether it's chronic pain, whether it's physical, and knowing that the body is going to finally let go, um, we can show up for any of these people, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I think about how my dad's journey through ALS would have changed if he had a coach to walk him through that, or a death doula to help him navigate all of the changes that
Right?
he's experiencing as he neared the end of life, and how that would have gone so differently from a lot of the challenges that I witnessed being 11, seeing him go through that. And I think about, he used to play video games with us a lot because that was like one of the few things that he could do, that we could spend time with each other. He could at least use his thumbs and like play video games. And I think that was um one of those things to help keep his mind off of, where he was at, in a way that we could connect. But yeah, that's going to look different for every person. And I love what you said about just the validation of like, this is honestly where I'm at and what I'm experiencing. And it's, you're not sharing that out of pity or wanting people to feel sorry for you, but it's more like, okay, well, I just need some recognition that, what I'm going through is really difficult. And how can I then, receive or offer support in that space? So I love that. It's, being honest and recognizing like where someone's at in their journey with whatever kind of grief it is, how that is so important and can be so healing on its own, just to be seen and recognize that, yeah, like what you're going through. Like, and Cindy in this coaching session right before this call, she did a beautiful job just recognizing, I see you in this pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and then how can we work to shift that, or to sit with that in ways that are going to be helpful for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, yeah, what we do as grief professionals is so we can have it so wide, so broad in the people that come to us. And it's not just the death of a person, but it could be the death of a marriage or the deterioration of a body, the physicality. And the other thing is that I just want to mention is part of the reason why I don't share sometimes, like more publicly, is because everybody has their stories or what works for them. And mindset is huge. And I don't disagree with that. But when you're in a lot of pain, you just don't want to have a lot of, here's what, oh, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this, kind of thing. Or, just change your mind, change your mind. I just change your mind, change your body. And it's like, it feels very dismissive. We've talked about toxic positivity. It just feels like a bit, that I'm glad that worked for you, but I may not be in that space right now. I might be there next week. And we all know these things, but it's like, when are we able to step into it ourselves versus being told what to do? And that's why I like coaching. And even that session with Cindy, she wasn't telling me what to do. She was just exploring what might I think would be helpful for me. And I think
Mhm.
that's a reminder for all professionals who are working with people who are grieving, whatever that grief is arising from, to use inquiry. Be curious. That's your word. Be curious and try not to advise
Yeah.
what someone else should be doing because you really don't understand it. I 25 years in a career, and I really did not understand this chronic pain and grief association until this happened.
Mhm. Yeah. Right. And that goes for like grief across the board or just life in general, right? Like, and that's a belief that we have as coaches is that our clients, we know that people are creative, resourceful, and whole. You repeat that again and again in the Confident Grief Coach School. And it's true. Like, I don't want to impose my belief system upon someone else and tell someone what to do, even though it's human and natural to want to fix it for someone and to want to help. And it's like, okay, there may be a time and space for that, but to ask permission first before we just shove things in people's face when they express that they've got a challenge that's going on, to witness them and to see them and recognize where they're at. And then perhaps there could be a further conversation about support, but maybe not. Maybe they just need to be seen and heard in that. And that is enough sometimes.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Pat, for opening up and being vulnerable about your pain and your journey. I appreciate you. And I know that so many listeners, I'm sure, can relate on some level. And if you're one of those people that is also experiencing chronic pain or had witnessed, the physical deterioration of someone in your life due to an illness, we'd love to hear what your experience has been like and how you've navigated through the grief of those losses personally or with whoever's in your life that you've been walking alongside that journey with. So leave a comment below if you'd like. We'd love to hear from you. And if this is helpful for you or you know someone that might find this video helpful, please do share this. We do these videos really just to support our community and to help bring some awareness to grief and how to support ourselves through that process. So we would appreciate if you shared this with someone that might find this helpful. And then, of course, to like this if this video was helpful for you, and to subscribe so that you can get notifications on our next videos as well.
Absolutely, because we would like, the vision for the Confident Grief Coach School is to provide accessible and transformative healing for grieving families throughout the world. The more that you subscribe, more subscribers we get, the more that people will find this and keep sharing it. So it's not about Cami and I getting notoriety. That's not what this is about. It's really about, we want to be able to share valuable content to other people in this profession of supporting people in grief, but also for people who are grieving, to validate and maybe understand better, what's going on with themselves. So please, 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 take this time to subscribe and like, as Cami said, and share away. We would really appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
See ya.